Shalom Aleichem. Welcome to Breslov web seminar, Parshat Metzora. This Shabbos is Shabbat HaGadol, the big Shabbos, the great Shabbos. It's so called because of the great miracle that happened. It was on the 10th of Nisan, that year of the Exodus. Shabbos fell on the 10th of Nisan. And the Jews were commanded on the 10th day to take the lamb they were going to slaughter for the Pesach sacrifice, the Paschal lamb. And the lamb was the Egyptians' idolatry. They worshipped the lamb. And taking somebody's idolatry for yourself, to keep it, and then with the intention of sacrificing it and whatnot, doesn't sit well generally with the person who's serving that idolatry. So it was a miracle. The Jews were able to take the sheep, and they took it to their homes, and they fulfilled the mitzvahs that they had to fulfill with it. And Baruch Hashem, the Exodus took place. Today we are a Jewish nation. We have survived some 300 years in exile. We have survived everything that they threw at us, whether it's the Holocaust, the Spanish Inquisition, the Auto de Fe, the Crusades, what the church threw at us all the years, what the Arabs have thrown against us all the years, what the destruction of the temple and all that. And we're still here. Shabbat HaGadol, it's a commemoration of the miracle that all those nations that picked up their hands to strike us eventually ended up in the dustbins of history. Take a look at the great Greek nation, or the Spanish Armada, which used to rule the whole world. They were all over. Take a look at the Roman Empire. What is it today? And so on and so forth. So Shabbat HaGadol is something for us to recognize the greatness of Hashem, that Hashem gave a word, He promised He'll be with us, and He's kept it. And we're still here today, despite everything that's been thrown against us. All right, and now what does this have to do with Parshat Metzora? Metzora, we said last week, was Sazria, spoke about the afflictions. This week, it speaks about the purification from those afflictions. It speaks about what happens if something goes wrong in your home, in your house, if an affliction shows up in the house. It speaks about personal impurities, whether a man, if he has a waste of seed or ejaculation, or a woman if she has menstruation, or whatever the case may be. It speaks about laws of purity and impurity. Now, what is the law of purity for somebody who has fallen victim to the affliction, to the tzaras? Well, it says in the beginning of the parsha, you have to take two birds, and there's a ritual that you have to go through. One bird has to be slaughtered, the other one has to be dipped into it with in the blood and the water and so on. It's a whole ritual that goes through. And at the end, right, the live bird, the one that remains alive, is sent away and finished. And that's the end of the story. Why a bird? The Medrash asks, why a bird? Medrash answers, Yovoi Petatya v'yechaper al Petatya, Yovoi Kalanya v'yechaper al Kalanya. Let the voice, a bird is always chirping, right? Chirping, it's like it's talking all the time. Let the chirping of the bird who chirps, let it act as a purification, as a forgiveness for someone who chirped. What does that mean? The Gemara in Erechim says that one of the reasons afflictions comes is because of slander, loshon hara. Loshon hara is considered the worst of all sins, right? It says a person could stand wherever he is in the world, and he can kill somebody in Rome or any place else in the world just by saying something bad about him. By negating him, you can kill that person, ruin his reputation, destroy his life, and so on. Right? You'll always notice the newspapers, when they have something to say about a person, they come out with big bold headlines and whatnot. If they find out they were wrong, they'll publish a correction on page 6 that 2 lines, we were wrong, and that's it. That's their apology. But that doesn't take away the damage they did with the person's slander. And that's the idea behind slander. Slander destroys. Slander is the worst affliction that a person can be afflicted with, speaking negatively about somebody else. Because of that, these afflictions, these sufferings come about and whatnot. So we need something, a bird, chirping. We need music to heal the affliction. That's what Rabbi Nachman says in Lesson 3 in Likutey Moharan. And he explains that the source of music, the source of the chirping of the bird, so to speak, it's a kind of musical melody, and the source of that is from the cherubim that were on top of the holy ark in the temple. That level is where prophecy came from. So what you're dealing with is the power of speech, slander, that could be very far-reaching. It could affect who knows how many people and whatnot. And where does that speech come from? It comes from the levels of prophecy. And every person has speech. Every person has the ability to speak, to talk to Hashem, to talk to his friend, his family, talk to himself if he wants. A person has to be able to talk, because dibur, speech, is called malchus. The Zohar calls speech as malchus, authority. You want to control yourself? Your speech is your authority. Right? Tell yourself no. If you want something, tell yourself yes. Right? If you can, you have authority. The power of speech is malchus, which means authority. You could take that speech that you have and you could turn it into the most powerful weapon you can to conquer all the vistas that you want. On the other hand, if you misuse speech, so then what happens? You bring affliction. You bring it upon somebody else. You bring it upon yourself. This is the affliction of speech if it's not done right. If we did speak slander, then what we have to do is try now to speak proper speech. What is proper speech? We have to learn melody, sing. Sing is usually coming from a happy heart. Someone who is happy will sing. Someone who has something positive to think about, somebody who has something positive happening in his life will sing, right? The singing is basically singing to Hashem, thanking Hashem for the things that we have merited to. The singing is basically recognizing that Hashem is there for us to accept us. Even if we blemished, even if we damaged, even if we caused affliction, there are ways to rectify it. Story is told, somebody came to the Chofetz Chaim and he asked him, so you speak a little slander, what's the big deal? Right? And he answered, well, let's say you slandered somebody. You slandered him. Right? And you're sorry now. You want to say you're sorry. How do you rectify it? He said, take a pillow that's loaded with thousands and thousands of feathers and go out into the public square and then rip open the pillow and let all the feathers fly around. So he went and did it. Came back to the Chofetz Chaim. Okay, I did it, and the feathers spread around. He said, okay, that's what you did with your slander. You spread it around. You want to rectify it? Now go collect all those feathers. Go take all those feathers, gather them up, and put them back in place. Can you? Is it possible? That's the effect of slander. It goes out, it goes somewhere. Why the Shulchan Aruch says somebody who speaks loshon hara, you do not have to forgive them, because who knows what kind of damage they did, right? It's suggested you do forgive. You do be a person who forgives others. But slander is slander. You can destroy a person's life. The lesson of Parshat Metzora, if we want to get to the Shabbat HaGadol, if we want to get to that great miracle of being redeemed, the first step is speech. We'll talk about this Pesach and the different shmuz. Pesach, the holiday of Pesach, is really a hybrid word. Pesach. Pe meaning mouth, sach meaning speech, spoke. I spoke. Pesach is a mouth that speaks, because in Egypt, right, we find that speech was in exile. This is what the Zohar says, the Arizal says. And why is that? Because Moshe was a kvad peh, he was stuttered. Did you ever see in the Chumash where it says that Moshe stuttered? No, you didn't see that, ever. Right? He was kvad peh because he had to go into Egypt. He never stopped for a minute to speak, Moshe. Never. He had to say something, he said it. But it's just that he was in a place that was foreign to good speech. Egypt was a place of impurity, and it was subjected to all the kinds of terrible speech that people have. And that's what Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim stands for a Metzor, something that's very narrow, right? And Mitzrayim represents the throat of a person, because the throat is the narrowest part of the body. The torso is out, the head is wider, right? But the throat is the narrowest part. And that's where the speech becomes trapped and whatnot. The miracle of the Exodus is that people could speak. Imagine being able to say anything you want and not offending anybody. Wouldn't that be great? Right? You can speak. You don't have to be careful. You don't have to be politically correct. Well, you should never be politically correct anyway, because being politically correct means you're not telling the truth. But okay, let's say you're politically correct and you say the right things and whatnot. Or let's say you are careful, you're in a group of people, you can't speak to them about these certain ideas or whatnot. You have to be careful. Imagine having free speech. Isn't that what the First Amendment is all about? Freedom of speech? The Second Amendment, whatever it is. You have the right to say whatever you want, right? Or as Justice Felix Frankfurter said, when they brought the case before the Supreme Court, could you say whatever you want to say in public? And he said no. Freedom of speech. He said freedom of speech does not allow you to stand in the middle of a theater and scream fire, which you could throw everyone into a panic, and you get everyone scared and frightened and whatnot. That's not what freedom of speech is all about. Freedom of speech is be able to speak freely, say what's on your mind, and not offend somebody else, not have loshon hara, not have slander. Be able to speak freely and say what you want, right? And the other person will understand that you're speaking to him for his benefit. That's redemption. That means I can walk around free and clear and do whatever it is that I want without having to suffer any of the problems that come up in an unfree society that claims it's really free. That's the miracle of Parshat Shabbat HaGadol. That's the lesson of Parshat Metzora, where we have to be careful what we're doing insofar as saying what we're saying, doing what we're doing. We should be able to sit by the Seder night and recite all the miracles that God did for us. We should be able to do that every day. Recite the miracles that God did for us. And that way we'll be able to be saved from affliction, because nobody's going to be angry at you. You never said anything wrong. May Hashem bless us to do the right thing, that we have a good Shabbos, and we have a great Pesach, and blessings upon all of Israel. Amen.